Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and aesthetic businesses. I'm Dr Jake Sloane, an aesthetic doctor with over 16 years experience in facial aesthetics.
And I'm Segal, an entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years of experience in our industry. Our podcasts are aimed at industry professionals, and any information or advice given is general in nature. You should consult with a healthcare provider before undergoing any treatment.
You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for on-demand content for injectable and business education.
Welcome back, Jake. It's been a couple of weeks since we recorded together or have been in the studio, and we were away with Alma for their annual academy in, Thailand, Pattaya, which is an interesting part of the world. It has some has a bit of a reputation for certain things happening there, but none of that happened.
Don't Google it. And actually, joking aside, maybe the people who don't go on too many conferences, maybe your first big conference away for a long time, I think you went to IMCAS about 20 years ago, but it's a good insight into how little you get to do apart from go to the hotel and the conference. You don't see the local area at all.
No, we only left the hotel twice, and those were for two organised dinner / event that Alma had organised. But it was a great hotel. We stayed at the Royal Cliff?
Yeah, that's right.
Royal Cliff Hotel. So it was this massive sort of compound. It had like a separate gym and sauna sort of area. There were pools everywhere. There were lots of different things going on. You had to catch like a little buggy around to get to different parts of the resort. So we stayed on location, except for those 2 nights. That's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
But why were we there, Jake? Maybe telling people why we were there.
Yeah. So actually, let's explain this podcast first. This is going to be a different podcast to our normal one, because what we did is we obviously got introduced to some really interesting people, and we've captured local content. So when we were there, we took just 2 simple lapel microphones and my phone, recorded some conversations, and we're going to turn this podcast into like a collage or a mishmash of various conversations. So first disclaimer, sorry if the audio isn't as good as our studio mics, but I'm sure you'll find it no less interesting. But yeah, the Alma Academy. So, I mean, some of our guests will explain sort of from their perspective what it is, but it's a big conference for their customers. I think there's about 340 doctors and nurses and some dermal therapists from all over the world. I think 34 countries. Huge event, and probably one of the best organized events that I've been to. It was great. The communication from the company, they had their own app, so you could just refer to the app and find out what was going on each day, but also the communication for us to sort of do our interviews. And first for us, we were sort of treated as journalists. So we were in the press pack and we had some particular sort of journalist events that we had to do as well. It was really good. It was a good learning experience for us to not be in the comfort of our studio and to sort of think on our feet, and just the logistics of, how we're going to put this podcast together. So hopefully it works.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this is, would you call this a sponsored podcast? I guess it kind of was, because we were paid to go over there.
Yes.
But we didn't really get an agenda from Alma other than, I guess, some suggested topics to talk about their KOLs about. But essentially it was an opportunity for us just to give honest feedback about the event and to experience what it was like. And I guess one of the take-home messages for me, and something that sort of rung true no matter who I spoke to, was these were all Alma customers. And I think in this sort of competitive landscape where there are lots of different device companies, there's a lot of good equipment on the market. Something that became obvious to me was Alma's relationship with their customers, and everyone felt like they were part of a family, and it wasn't just about flogging somebody a device. It was about the ongoing relationship, really having a vested interest in these devices being a successful acquisition or a successful asset that these people were bringing into their businesses to be successful. And I think that's kind of been my hesitation with a lot of my consulting clients around buying devices, was these things are so expensive, you need to make sure they're successful. And that was something that I was hearing from lots of different people, no matter where they were from around the world. So we spoke to people from sort of Ecuador, Mexico, there were people there from Japan, Europe, Russia, Ukraine, everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was a consistent message that I got. I don't know if you experienced the same kind of thing.
Yeah, 100%. because I don't own a device, and you'll hear in some of the interviews that we did, I sort of made that clear that I'm an injector, so I don't know that part of the industry. But if you're going to spend 1, 2, 3, 400 grand on a device, you really don't want to just get the device and then never hear from them again. So yeah, everyone I spoke to was super happy, and some of our conversations will explain how they support their customers. But yeah, it was a really greatly done event.
Yeah, and I think one of the focal points of the discussion was the future of energy-based devices, how they're going to intersect with injectables, combination therapy treatments in the future. So how you combine your injectable treatments. And we spoke about things particularly with like Professor Artzi around the use of injectables with sort of post-laser and sort of how that future is going to sort of move forward. So that was kind of really interesting to me to see how these sort of things were going to work together in the future. And I think it gave you some to think about as well in your practice, even though you don't, as you said, you don't do those treatments, how you might further strengthen that synergy between yourself and the dermal therapists within your teams.
Yeah, if you're obviously an injector listening to this podcast, I guess what we would love you to take away from this is, how are you going to streamline a device into your clinic better? Or if you haven't bought one, or even if you have bought one, how are you going to sort of utilize it better? But also, if you're an injector like me, thinking about protocols and combination treatments to elevate what you're already doing.
Yeah.
That was every single person we spoke to, that rang through the entire event, is that if you combine treatments and understand the particular protocols of how you mold both energy-based devices and injectables, sometimes in the same sitting, the results are just, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So really interesting.
Yeah, like that.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off. So who was the first person that we spoke to, Jake? I believe it might have been the CEO himself. So maybe just give us a bit of a prelude to that discussion.
Yeah, so we met, this was our first sort of foray into the journalist sort of press club. So it was a special event just for about 10 journalists, including ourselves. There was people from Japan, India, UK, South Korea, and Thailand, I think.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's just weird for us to sort of do an interview, but with other people and thinking on your feet and not doubling up on the questions and trying to make it interesting for everyone.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But yeah, so Lior Dayan, he is the president and CEO of Alma. Really nice guy, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't he be? But sometimes you meet, people in that sort of position, and they can be, arrogant or a little bit short on time or not sort of forthcoming with their answers. But he was very open, very nice, very approachable, and really refreshing. He's been in Alma a long time now.
Yeah, was it in 2008 or something? I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. And in various roles, but in the CEO position since 2017.
Yeah.
So unusual. Often these people are there for 2 or 3 years, then they're gone.
Yeah.
Which happens with all the pharma companies that I've ever met. You meet someone, you establish a relationship, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
It's actually quite frustrating.
Yeah.
So good for Alma. So what we'll do is we're going to drop in our conversation with Lior and let you guys listen to what actually was said on the day. And then we'll move on to our next speaker.
Enjoy.
So Lior, thank you for your time today. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners and explaining your role at Alma?
Sure. Thank you very much, guys, for the opportunity to join your podcast. So I'm Lior Dayan. I'm the president and CEO of Alma. By the way, Alma is owned by Sister Medical. I was born in the States. I'm in California, but most of my life was in Israel. And after being 7 years in the telecom business, I moved to the medical field. And after that, moved to Alma, first in sales and marketing, and then becoming the CEO.
So, Lior, what exactly is the purpose of the Alma Academy? And of all locations, why did you choose Thailand?
So this would be, as you know, the 7th academy in the international markets. And the academy is a major platform for us to establish the community of Alma. And having such a community, such a prestige group of physicians together with us, together with leaders from this industry, allow us that kind of engagement to evolve, to innovate. We come back from the academy with a lot of thoughts of where we need to take things, what we learned, what we need to adjust. So this is a very important platform for us. And it also gives a great opportunity for our customers to, from the inside, to know us, to engage. It's about relationships. Thailand is a very, very important market, especially in the Southeast Asia market. It's a very strong powerhouse. And we know this market for many years, and it's a mature market. And you know, I remember there was one company many years ago did some kind of a questionnaire analysis about the attention to aesthetics on different nations in the region. Thailand is very high with that attention to aesthetics.
From my perspective, and from people I've observed in my time in the industry, great leaders are generally able to think multiple moves ahead into the future. So with that in mind, where do you see the future for Alma in the next 4 to 5 years in terms of innovation? And then we've got regenerative medicine and all those sort of disciplines coming to the front as well. And so how do you sort of see all of that intersecting and using devices to sort of combine treatments to improve patient outcomes?
That's a heavy one. So first of all, I mean, when you look at this business of Alma, we, from a geography point of view, we're the leader in the two big giants, right? In North America, the United States, and in China. And then there are not as big, but Korea and Japan, and then Central Europe. I mean, from a geography point of view, we really, through the B2B channel, we're very strong with all the leading physicians within this space. And in our eyes, this is one step on the way, because we want to be able to be in front of patients, consumers, with our leading technology solutions. Expect from us to have more and more AI involved in this process, helping the physician to engage with the patient through the consultation process. The decision would be by the physician, of course, but they will have something that would be cloud-based with strong gathering machine learning that will help that process, state-of-art solutions, technologies that will be combined under the constraints of regulation, of course, and then a channel that will allow you to communicate between the patient and the physician. So from home, they could see the progress of how things are going. And so here I have a win-win-win situation. The patient, the physician, and us. And we all want to continue to learn. We all want to continue to learn and evolve. And so this is where it's going. And it makes sense, I think.
So yeah, it was really interesting spending time with Lior. Obviously nice to meet other journalists. And I thought he was really open and candid. What did you think of him?
I liked him. I mean, to be honest, I wish I would have had my microphone with me at the second night dinner, because he came up to me and we had a chat for about 15 to 20 minutes, just between, you know, he and I just talking about the future of aesthetics and what we thought it would look like. And I found him just to be really open and friendly and really passionate about the industry and excited. For someone that's been in the same company for such a long time, he still had this real sort of energy about him and positivity about the industry, which was quite refreshing. I think sometimes we can get a bit stale, but I didn't find that with him at all. And really fascinating chat. Hopefully we get to spend more time with him in the future.
Yeah, agreed. And then straight after that, we were put in a room with Bergan Rosen, who is the Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer for Alma. So again, really nice lady, obviously slightly different spin, her role's different. I mean, sounds obvious from the title, but what is a CMO from your perspective?
Chief Marketing Officer, so someone that essentially looks at the overarching strategy for how you communicate your brand messaging, promotions, different areas of focus in terms of how they're going to communicate to their customers out there around the world. And I think it'd be quite a complex role, because something that became really apparent to me in particular was just the diversity of who was there and the different cultural influences and the way people like to be communicated with in different parts of the world. So you'd have to wear multiple hats and really try and get your head around those different markets and how you're best going to communicate and really understand the nuances of different markets.
Yeah, definitely. And as well as different regulatory sort of landscapes,
True, yeah.
You know, on and off label in different countries, it's always different. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Lior already alluded to this in his talk, but Alma also work with injectable companies So, depending on what products are available in different territories, that sort of changes things as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's hear what our conversation was with Tal.
Hi guys, we are here with Tal. Tal is the CMO of Alma Lasers. So Tal, did you want to introduce yourself and what your role is with Alma?
Sure. So my name is Tal. I'm the Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer at Alma. My background is marketing, obviously. I always played, marketing roles in different categories. I started in entertainment. I worked for the Discovery Channel for a few years in New York. And in the past 8 years, Alma, medical aesthetics. And I found my spot, that's for sure. I love it.
Great. And tell us about the Israeli market. It's a topic that we haven't really touched on the podcast. So tell us about who's doing aesthetics. Is it popular? Is it conservative? Is it, what are people asking for?
Oh, the Israeli market. So the Israeli market is very much influenced by big Western markets like United States, like UK. Very aesthetics sensitive, obviously. It's our strongest market per capita in terms of revenue. Our brand in Israel is very well known. It's one of the markets where we have the strongest brand and most established one.
Your CEO was talking about the supply and demand balance and the fact that now as the industry has matured and evolved, there's a lot more people today than there was 5-10 years ago. And so with that becomes competition, and how do you stand out in the marketplace and how do you market to your patients? And something that a lot of business owners struggle with is how do they get customers in this competitive landscape? And I'm taking this opportunity to pick your brain as a marketing expert. What do Alma do to help business owners and providers attract customers, whether it be new customers to their business, even communicating a new device or a new treatment to an existing pool of patients? Mm-hmm. And any hints and tips you have for people out there listening, what can they potentially do in their practices to help promote, devices or services?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, we do it in two different channels. We support our customers with marketing, collaterals, videos, kits, whatever they need, and also tips on an ongoing basis, because the doctors, they are not marketeers, right? This is not their expertise, and they truly believe, and there are some that don't even understand how much they need that information and knowledge. So really help them understand that it's needed, and we provide them with all the tools possible through webinars, through academies, through smaller events that we conduct, sometimes focused on marketing and business only, just to make sure that they have the right tools and knowledge to market our platforms and treatments, in this case, properly sell them through to the consumers. And also we generate the demand bottom up. And this is quite new in our industry, because when you look in the competitive environment, not a lot of our competition players in the industry truly invest into B2C marketing, okay? And this is something that become very important for us. You were talking about differentiation. So yeah, that's a key differentiator for us.
I don't know if you know, in Australia, we've had some significant regulatory change and advertising a big problem for a lot of injectors, particularly because we can't market drugs now or medicines. But with energy-based devices and lasers, that's not impacted. So it could be a good avenue for clinics to maybe start considering your devices as a sort of a way to advertise those combination treatments down the line. What do you say to that?
Absolutely. I think that's an added value that we have that, many other players in the market don't have, that, if we can get out of this door, we can use another one, to make sure that we are delivering our messages clearly. I think that one of the things that I would suggest maybe clinics to do in this case, when there are strict regulatory rules about advertising, just talk about the needs, okay? Don't talk about the products, talk about the needs, show success stories without really specifying which products you use, and they'll come to you, okay? It's all about driving traffic to your clinic, and it's a lot of trial and error, okay? Because there are a lot of cultural differences. It's really hard for me to address, one market or what works best in one market. But, it's people at the end of the day across borders and countries. And once you speak to their hearts and you understand exactly what bothers them, okay, then you can, just market any product you need.
what's next for Alma? Like, what's in the pipeline? What's exciting? Can you give our listeners maybe a tease or a preview for what's to come?
Well, I can't really disclose too much.
Okay.
So it's going to be like a very short
Yep.
teaser, but we're talking about trends, and one of the biggest trends across different categories is personalization. People want to have a tailor-made solution for them, not something generic. So we are working on a very unique solution which capitalizes exactly on this trend. It's all about personalization today, and this is going to be our next big launch next year.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Lovely to meet you, and congratulations on a successful academy. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, guys.
See you later.
Thanks.
Bye. Right, so now we had a chat with Dr. Dean Berman, who is the Chief Medical Officer for Alma, but he has quite an interesting background, Jake, because he's been in this Chief Medical Officer role for different companies around the world. I think one of them might have been Galderma.
And
a couple
Chroma,
yes.
and Mertz, and now Alma. So really interesting background. And actually, we got on so well with Dean. We had dinner with him on, I think, the second night, that he quite happily volunteered to do an Injector Diaries next year. So we won't give too much away. And obviously, you'll hear from our conversation a little bit about his background. But Chief Medical Officer, I mean, this is an interesting role in itself because you're trying to blend both the commercial as well as the clinical side. So, my understanding of what he would do is obviously trying to deliver patient safety. That would be the sort of utmost part of his role, but then trying to align that with the various laws and regulations of each territory. And like I said, making sure that, patient safety is sort of that priority. So interesting job, well-traveled, he's been all over the place and he's got an interesting background himself that you'll hear. So let's see what Dean had to say about his role and what he does at Alma.
Hey guys, we're here with Dr. Dean Berman, who is got an interesting background. You're living in Austria at the moment, and you are the medical director or medical officer for Alma Global.
Correct.
Fantastic. And tell us about your day-to-day practice, because you're also an aesthetic physician as well as medical director for Alma.
So when I treat patients, it's combined treatment is my philosophy. I look very holistically. I have the privilege of working with the great devices of Alma and also the injectables and skincare, and to find the right balance in order to achieve best results.
One of the big themes here so far has been combination treatments, and I was saying to Tal in our previous interview that many injectors don't use devices, including myself. I've got a team I can refer to internally, but I don't use them myself. So for our listeners, can you explain what they should be thinking of? What should their strategy be for their business moving forwards? Why combination treatments, and how can they get into that themselves?
So I think that for all of us, when we're beginner, obviously we start with the monotherapy. It's easier and makes the transition much more correct. But when you realize that what you want to achieve is the best of your clients, when you want to offer to them the right solution, suddenly 1 + 1 is not 2. It's 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this is exactly what you need. So from devices perspective, I would recommend people to start with some kind of a console, like a platform that can offer more than one modality, like laser, infrared, IPL, etc. Something that you can do quite a lot of indications, and then you can mix and match accordingly. So this is for sure the best way to go. Don't go to something that is very specific, so only one wavelength. That, in my opinion, will be a mistake. Take something that will give you a few options, that will give you the largest amount of indications that you've got, like the Harmony, for example. Afterwards, you can select and you can find where is specifically your niche. But this is something that will come later on. So I've also, today I delegate quite a lot. And still, when it comes to protocol creations, I do insist on being responsible to every patient that is coming. I see them. We have a really great discussion with the patients, but also with other members of my team. And then we decide how to do it. So this is definitely the way to go.
Right. And sort of, what are you doing day to day for Alma? So, what's involved?
So, from injectable perspective, and this is what I love doing, we are representing of Prolenium, which is a Canadian company in the DACH region, which is Germany, Austria, Switzerland, in UK as well, Australia and New Zealand. We also represent other companies like Profilo, so Ipsa's Profilo, in Thailand, here, Hong Kong, India, Israel, and coming very soon to China as well. And we also have a collaborations with Revance, Daxxify, the neurotoxin, in China that was just recently approved. So My role is quite unique. I am responsible to each and every country to help them implement whatever products or protocols that they've got, to combine treatments geographically based on the right products and the devices that they've got, also indications wise and preference of the population, and then to help also from the side of the sales for marketing clinical team to train all of them, especially if it's a new product that they never heard about it.
You mentioned you work closely with IBSA and you might do, laser treatment on the day followed by Profilo almost immediately. But can you talk about the transepidermal delivery of certain products? I don't know if it's on or off label, but many of our injectors won't be aware that that's a medium that they could actually use.
I'll say a few things, because globally we have some devices that are available in some countries and not so. Sometimes it's on label, off label. When it comes specifically to the combination of Profilo and energy-based devices, for example, we already created beautiful result where we combined for the neck or Profilo body for the hands, and with different devices. So we have the 1570s nanometers for the hands. We treat the hands firstly with the device, and then we wait an hour for the tissue to cool down, and then we do Profilo body into the hands with amazing results. And for the neck, we do the same with an Ofir, so with RF and ultrasound. Very similar idea, but beautiful results. We are also have in some countries a device that is working on transepidermal delivery, where we are treating areas like hair loss, for example. It is a very simple transition as well, because it's a very simple to operate devices that gives, even for beginners doctors, the options and the alternative to try something that they haven't tried before with wonderful results.
Right. And sort of where do you see the future of combination treatments? Maybe there's things you can't say, maybe there's some top secret stuff that you can't reveal, but where do you think it's going, and what can you tell us about the future?
So, first of all, we've got tons of secrets. Yeah. But we all know that regenerative medicine is, we are at the verge of it. What we tend to see now is just the beginning, but obviously we are working already on combinations with regenerative medicine. I mentioned Profilo before, which is a kind of regenerative on its own, but when you combine it already with other modalities, it's fascinating. I had 2 days ago here in Thailand wonderful discussions with dermatologists in Bangkok, where we discussed what is our aim, how we would like to alter or to change the future or to improve the future within the next 5, 10, or even 20 years. And the discussions is wonderful. I will say that some amazing pipeline ideas are coming. So there's a lot to wait for, this is for sure, especially when we're talking about the combination, because we're working with, as I mentioned, Prolenium and other companies, and the future held very, very nice ideas.
Can you give us any teasers, anything without getting killed?
Few examples that we've got are, biostimulators, as we all know, are very, very big things. So, but the thing is that if you look at some of the biostimulators that we've got, most of them from a formulation point of view are quite old. Some of them are 20 years old nearly. So there was an update, let's say, based on studies in regards to the combination, the composition within, and what you need to add also from amino acids perspective, from type of hyaluronic acids into the formulations, and then how are they supported with different, I would say, non-invasive devices, but also with minimal invasive devices. So the idea is, when can we replace surgeries with the minimal downtime and with the greatest effect?
Do you think that you'll be able to incorporate AI to help consultations and diagnosis to then aid understanding which protocol to use for your combined therapies?
We are working on AI, and actually we are in a very advanced level of working, especially within the diagnostic tools. This is something fantastic that is coming to Alma quite soon, which from a diagnostic point of view will be able to analyze the face and to provide to the physicians different alternatives depending on the indications that the patients are interested, and on the other side also to offer them the right options of solutions, so not just to diagnose but also to suggest treatments.
Well, Dean, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it, and thanks for being on Inside Aesthetics.
My pleasure.
Right, guys, hope you enjoyed that little chat with Dean. As Jake alluded to, we are hoping to get him back on in 2025 for an Injector Diaries episode and get to talk about his role at Alma, but obviously beyond that as well, all his different experiences with different companies. And as you said, Jake, he's had quite an interesting background before he went down the aesthetics pathway. So looking forward to unpacking that with him early next year. Now, who do we speak to next? I believe it was our friends over in the North American region.
Yeah, so we spoke to Francesa Ham. She is the Vice President of Marketing of North America, and Spencer Detter, he's the Vice President of Sales of North America. Now, again, slightly different spin again, North America being by far the biggest aesthetic economy in the world. So it's interesting just to get their own insights on that particular part of the world. And let's see what they had to say.
So, Fran, did you want to introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us about your background and, obviously your role with Alma.
Sure. Hello, my name is Francesca. I am the Vice President of Marketing for Alma in North America. I've been in the industry for over 25 years. It's been a great 25 years, and obviously working with Alma has been a real nice pinnacle to my career.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Spencer Detter, the VP of Sales in North America. Been in aesthetics for 19 years. I know I don't look it. It's obviously do some of the treatments, and have held many different roles throughout sales, from the rep all the way climbing up to the current role that I'm in. Been with Alma for 6 years, and it's really been fun.
Okay. So let's talk about the States in general, because it's a really interesting region of the world. There's a lot going on there at the moment, and inflation's been a big issue. Businesses around the world, particularly in America, are struggling. So what's happening in the American economy in general, and how's that affecting patients and your clients?
For sure. It's true. We're seeing it. Our economy has struggled for a couple years now, mainly because of inflation.
Yep.
But aesthetics is always there. People care about what they look like. I think what we see in the States is if you're an aesthetic practice already, then you're comfortable, you're doing well, you are willing to expand and offer different treatments. You know that it's going to continue to grow. People move towards a little bit more non-invasive or very minimally invasive when it comes to the economy dropping down and holding their money a little bit closer. Probably back off from doing the full surgical procedures a little bit more. Say, hey, I'm going to get to that, but how can I hold myself off until I feel more comfortable? So that's what we do see. When it comes to someone trying to get into aesthetics, they're a little bit more apprehensive right now. And obviously this is an election year. Every time there's an election year, people kind of hold a little bit. Hey, I want to see what happens. And then, President-elect comes in and we just get back to business as usual.
One of the other trends that we're seeing, particularly here in Australia, is the reduction in dermal filler use and people turning towards devices more so, looking to bring alternatives into their practice, looking to treat patients in a different way. Is that something that you're seeing in the States as well from a sales perspective, and people being more interested in devices?
I think when it comes to devices, we see a lot more combination therapies than we have probably ever seen before. I think people have always kind of looked at saying, hey, what is one thing that I can get done? Which is fine. And I think you want to talk about, we're so much more focused on a patient journey from when they walk into the practice to what they really want to accomplish, and knowing that at that single time that they're there, we're not going to get to that end point right away. So combination therapies, filler is still a thing. Botox is still a thing. We have seen it, from a filler standpoint, pull back a little bit because people do want to look a little bit more natural than that, overfilled look. So with that, more devices definitely come into play.
Fran, if I can ask you, how have you guys leveraged that from a marketing perspective? Because, patients understandably think very uni treatment sort of focused. They think of one thing on their face that they want treated, but I know you had a big influencer campaign with Kate Hudson. So how are you trying to educate both patients but also businesses to understand combination treatments?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think we live in a time right now where patients are so well educated, especially when it comes to services that are available to them. And I think someone like a Kate Hudson that we've been able to partner with has resonated really well because she is very much that girl next door, brand ambassador that they can recognize with. So that's been very helpful. But from a patient level, it is that 360 holistic approach. It's not just about getting, a service done, but it's just taking care of yourself from the inside out, just making sure that you have maintenance treatments, whether it's skincare, home use device, energy-based treatments, all the way to injectables. It really is that, very well-educated patient that really we do see quite a lot of.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware, in Australia, we're quite heavily regulated with what we can and can't do, especially with injectables. It's okay with laser or skin treatments, but I'm interested to sort of understand what the American patients think of B2C advertising. Do you think there's any downsides to it? What's your take on that?
We live in a society where we're just constantly around influencers. So honestly, it's not a I wouldn't say that it's something that is not relevant. It's just how you actually leverage it. Finding the right brand ambassador to partner with that your brand is very much associated with. I think with Kate, she's been doing our services for over 20 years. And for someone that has been an Alma patient, it's more recognizable than just, having a well-known brand ambassador.
So what are the kind of things that Alma does in America to help their clients market and promote? Because as we know, doctors and medical professionals generally aren't great at marketing and the business side of things. There are some exceptions out there, so I'm not going to throw everyone in that category. But as a general rule, they need a lot of hand-holding. So what do you do with your Alma clients in the States to help them?
Yeah, I'll actually turn this over to Spencer,
Yeah.
but I think, just to tee you up, we really take it from a very grassroots level, and we actually have a team. It's our post-sales team that works very closely with every one of our practices to help them get up and running, and also to just hold their hand through the process of their acquisition of a device all the way to the success of the practice.
So we have a post-sale team that we launched in 2020 in North America. And I think a post-sale team in our space is, hey, I'm here to help you run events and, maybe be a little hands-on. For us, we look at it more of like, hey, this is practice support. It's, some clinical support as well. And then there's, marketing support. So from a clinical support side of things, we do focus on, okay, patients walking in, how do I help do a consultation? What does that sound like? Every doctor is going to tell you, I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to come off like a salesperson to my patient. It's the very last thing that I want to do. We help with helping them see that conversation. What does it sound like? What does it start with? How do I transition that medical patient to a cash pay aesthetic patient? And then events, we help a lot with those events. We're getting to that time of season where it's coming into the holiday season. In the States, it's September 1st kind of hits, and all of a sudden kids go back to school, and aesthetics kind of picks up in a lot of practices. So we're always kind of pushing events. Marketing has changed so much. You're right. You don't want to say they don't necessarily know that much about marketing, but if you don't know how to do social media, if you don't know how to do different things like text blast and just keeping your patients educated in the loop of what's going on within your practice, you're missing. And we talk to the practices about, hey, you need to have someone within the practice that's your captain, your cheerleader, your marketing person. Like, well, I'm not going to hire a marketing person. It doesn't have to be a marketing person. It could be, just someone on your staff that's, hey, what is a hashtag? How often do I have to post? What are these reels about? What am I, trying to do? And I think, especially over the past few years, we've seen a shift within social media of what really has worked for practices. And there went from this like standard marketing post in social that's just a basic post to people love to see the real life. They love to see the reels. They love to see the stories. And you're constantly posting about, what are we doing right now? And it might just be something about, doing an IPL treatment or doing a hair removal treatment and getting a video or doing a clip, overlaying some music on it, whatever it is, it just grabs people. And then there's the clinical side, obviously for us, we want to see a practice expand with the different offerings that they have with Alma. And the only way they can really do that is if they're successful with the devices that they have from us, and they're growing. And we understand that. And so that's why that focus for us is the full aspect of a 360, practice support to get them to the next point of like, hey, what else do you guys have? That's what we want. That's the conversation we want to have.
What are the trends that you guys are seeing in the States when it comes to skincare or energy-based devices? Is there anything particularly trending right now?
I'll let Fran speak as well, but the biggest trends in the U.S. right now are combination therapies. Kind of mentioned that earlier. Knowing you're treating all different levels of the skin and creating a patient journey. That's a really big trend, whether it's with Alma devices or a combination of, many different devices. Even, like doing microneedling with a CO2 or a non-ablative. And a lot of practices, I would say 5 years ago, would think that those are kind of interchangeable. Medical weight loss is a really big thing in the States right now. GLP-1s, it's all the craze. And I don't, you talk to doctors, and I don't think it's going anywhere. A lot of them talk about it's really the tip of the iceberg of what some of these drugs can do. You're like, well, how's that with aesthetics? Obviously, it's, is weight loss. With weight loss, that's someone's first level of interest of this is what I want to do. Once they've lost some weight, now you're moving towards some other thing that bothers them that they look in the mirror and they see first. It's the pigment, it's the vessels, it's the wrinkle, it's the loose skin that you have, and it's starting a different conversation with a lot of practices. So, we have had a lot of medical practices that are doing the medical weight loss and now have stepped even more into aesthetics. So it's really a growing market for us of first-time kind of aesthetic users, from Botox fillers to doing, energy-based devices that's been created from medical weight loss. It's interesting.
It is interesting. Those GLP-1s, they have been available in Australia, but there's been a real shortage. So we haven't seen that peak of patients using those medicines yet. And again, because they're heavily regulated, maybe not as available for patients. But, we hear of the trend of Ozempic face and et cetera, et cetera. But you're right, that opens a new market for, well, now what do we do? How do we then replace the volume or the SAG or the laxaties? We're at Alma Academy, obviously, in Thailand, and I hear you guys are doing your own Alma Academy in the USA. So tell us about that, and for our listeners in the States and maybe North America, what can they expect from it?
Sure. So ours is coming up here in the middle of October in the Bahamas.
Oh, wow.
So
Can we come?
Yeah.
We'll do more of these.
Absolutely. We hold it twice a year in the States. We have a spring semester and a fall semester. We track about 300, 400 physicians. And it's always a very popular event for anyone that is an Alma customer, because not only do we try to provide, fresh new education, whether it's clinical settings or how to do practice marketing, but a lot of our events are attracted by the family type of approach that we take, and recognizing the speakers and seeing them year after year, and being a part of a community. It's really been a nice evolution in terms of how we've been doing our academies.
Yeah, and just something to add to that, you guys kind of hit on it with the family thing is, you've talked to so many people. It's no different when you come to the Alma Academy in the States, where, I've always said, and I hear it so many times, is it's great to have, the Michael Jordan and the Tom Brady and the Tiger Woods of aesthetics up on the stage presenting and, learning from the best. And, a lot of those practices have, hey, I have all these devices that I could choose from in my hallway. And, a lot of the people in the audience are like, well, I only have a couple. I don't have the luxury of all these different ones. And I always have heard and say, hey, when you're having breakfast, when you're having lunch, when you're having drinks or dancing with the DJ, talk to the person next to you. They have a practice just like yours. And, they're in a different market. What are the combination therapies that they're doing? What do they charge? How do they do a consultation? It's great to hear the best of the best on stage, but truly so much you can get out of the people that you're sharing that weekend with that are probably more accessible than, a speaker that has a line of 20 people waiting to talk to him during a break. So it's, ours is similar to this. It's about 75% clinical based and about 25% business and marketing, and 100% fun. But it's we love it. We always get positive experience, and people are walking out and they're saying, I have 4 things that I'm implementing in my practice, come Monday. And for us as a company, Fran does an amazing job of always keeping it fresh. You don't want to attend a conference and say, I've seen that case before. I've seen that before and after picture. So I want to say in our spring semester, and you could probably speak to the numbers more than I can, I want to say we had over 200 case study submissions in our spring semester that we got to choose from to say, it's not always, let me show you that extreme case. It's, let me show you some more of the everyday stuff that everyone in the room is probably seeing more common. Then it's cool to see an extreme case. It's, wow, look at that result. But it's not what you see every day. And, to have over 200 cases submitted for us to choose from and to present on, it really keeps the information fresh. Don't want someone to say, you know what, I've been to Alma Academy and I know what's presented. I'll skip this one and go to the next one. We just don't hear that. So I'm obviously very excited for about a month from now.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for your time and coming and having a chat with us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we get to have a bit more of a chat. But when the cameras are off, maybe tonight at dinner. But lovely to meet you both and have a safe trip back home to the States.
Thank you very much, guys.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that slightly different spin. It's always interesting to hear how they do it in America because, they can do B2C advertising and a lot of their strategies, I think it was alluded to in the conversation. They did a big influencer campaign with one of, sort of a big film star and, stuff like that would just never happen here in Australia. So, just interested to see how they do it in different parts of the world and see what's tolerated, see what patients kind of like in other places of the world.
Absolutely. So following our day of interviews, the first night was a white party, which was actually quite extraordinary, to be honest with you.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
So they hired a beach club probably half an hour from our hotel. Whole place was hired. It was just for Alma. Obviously, it's a white party, so everyone's wearing white sort of beach gear. It was just amazing. It was just so much fun. Everyone's obviously in a good mood, great food, great drink. And, they sort of turned it into, if you've ever traveled to Thailand, which I have probably 25 years ago, and you go to sort of Phi Phi Island and you're having like the buckets of Samsung. That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
So it was good fun.
Yeah, and it was, they actually brought their own DJ.
They did from Tel Aviv.
Yeah. It was pretty full on because Tel Aviv is actually the party capital of Israel. So this guy was great. The music was pretty full on. I think maybe I'm getting a bit old for that music, but it was great. I mean, there was so much food. There was just when you thought it couldn't get any more extravagant after all the buffet of food, then you got onto the beach and there's people like cutting up like fresh coconuts for you to drink. There was fruit everywhere.
Fire dancers, fireworks. There was fresh Thai pancakes being made. That was awesome.
It was mental. And I don't know how much occupational health and safety went into the fireworks. I don't know if those fireworks would have passed here in Australia.
It was Thai standards, but it was good. It was good fun.
Yeah, I actually caught the first bus home at 10 o'clock. I don't know what time you got home.
Boring. No, to be honest, I think the whole event ended at 11 because we had to be back for day 2 and more interviews.
Yeah, so there was a series of buses that sort of just picked us up from the hotel and just transported everyone back and forth. It was highly efficient, to be honest. It was just like everything ran like clockwork. I'm sure there was a lot of effort that went on behind the scenes to make that all seem seamless, but great event. Everyone looked great. And just the location itself was spectacular. I mean, I think they went to such extremes that because it was the wet season, there was rain sort of on and off during our time there. Yeah. And I think I heard from someone that even the event planners went and put like plastic over, like a plastic tarpaulin over the sand at that part of the beach so that it wouldn't be wet because they knew the rain would stop at a certain time, but they wanted the ground to be dry. That's the kind of level they went to. It's crazy.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So we did make it back for day 2.
We did.
And on day 2, we spoke to some of the Alma KOLs. So first cab off the rank was Professor Ofir Artzi. Now, he's a great speaker, very charismatic and obviously hugely knowledgeable. What were your impressions of Ofir?
Oh, super friendly, great presenter, really engaging, a lot of energy. You can tell tell that he's really passionate about what he does. And particularly when it comes to scar treatment, that was kind of his real focal point, was treating people that had been in horrific like accidents or major surgical scars, trauma, reconstructive scars. So really sort of talking about how they treat scars, sort of the new way of thinking about treating scars early. I think that a lot of people out there, whether they be plastic surgeons or what have you, sort of have always told people you need to wait for a scar to sort of mature, like 6 to 12 months. But in fact, he was saying the opposite. The faster you can get onto treating scars, the better. But just how different and how the level of improvement that he was able to get with just combination treatments and using these new age devices. I didn't know that you could sort of deal with that sort of trauma and I guess reconstruct someone to getting, they weren't removed completely, but 90% reduction.
Yeah.
So people that have been involved in like motorbike accidents where they'd grazed their face along the road and they had pigment and bits of bitumen in there, and some of the before photos were quite horrific, and what he was able to achieve was amazing. But he was extremely charismatic. You can see why he's kind of traveling around the world doing this full time.
Yeah. Great speaker, and let's let you hear what he had to say.
So we are here with Professor Ofir Artzi, our dear friend all the way from Israel, and you're one of the rock stars here at this Alma Academy. So Ofir, for the people who don't know you, our listeners, tell them about you, your background, and what you specialize in.
So I'm a dermatologist. Most of the people who do aesthetics, they're not dermatologists or plastic surgeon. They come from there. So I'm a dermatologist. It starts with being a dermatologist. And afterwards, I'm a laser expert, but my passion is scars. Actually, as a child, I'm not sure you can really see it, but I had horrible acne scars and a scar I can hide with my beard. So I went through many treatments, and probably it took me towards the direction of treating scars. So this is my passion. I established the most important scar treatment conference, which is called SCARS, surprisingly. Last year it was in Berlin, and in 2 months it's going to be, this is the 5th edition, so it's the 5th time. It's going to take place in Bangkok, 15th to 17th of November, so I'm looking forward.
Fantastic. Now, you're also an injector as well.
Yeah.
And I know you've published some interesting papers in the past. So tell us about your injecting experience, because a lot of our listeners are injectors as well.
No, it's like, I think while talking about aesthetic dermatology or non-surgical medicine, you have to have the full package. So it's to treat scar and to treat vascular and pigmented lesion and to remove different lesions and to treat hyperhidrosis and to have this, I would say, anti-aging, which include injectables. So I do it, I published on it, I do it quite often. I have been injecting for the last, probably 15 years. And I inject a lot. So it's like around between 150 to 200 syringes a day. So it's a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. When I'm in Israel. Yeah.
So let's talk about scars for a moment, because as you said, it's a passion and area of focus for you. So what do you think most people do wrong when it comes to assessing and treating scars?
I think it's not, it's like whenever you treat scar, this is a good step to begin with. So the worst is to tell a patient, there's nothing to do. You have to live with your scar. This is a horrible message. So if you try to treat, this is a good beginning. However, this is a field of expertise. And especially nowadays, as compared to the past in which we didn't know much, now we know. We know how to improve scars. We know how to combine between modalities. And as a field of expertise, you have to gain knowledge. By the way, I think it is true for all our field. So you have those really good physicians, and here it doesn't really matter if you're a dermatologist or plastic surgeons or aesthetic physician, who really learn. They go to courses, they go to conferences, and then they gain knowledge and they become kind of an experienced injector or, scar expert. But most people who treat scars, they do it kind of on the go. And then they do not really maximize the result. So maybe a good example is acne scars. I have so many patients who are coming to me after they have been treated for years, and they are so disappointed. They're like, I did X, Y, Z, nothing helped. Nothing helped because no one actually evaluated the scar, combined the right modality, and then you don't really achieve like the best cosmetics or the best final result. So it's a message for all fields of, especially it's non-surgical medicine. If you first, it's a good, if you're here and you do either injectables or scars, you chose the right place, it's exploding, it's gonna be bigger and bigger, so good for you. But if you wanna be good and you wanna treat, it's let's say leg veins, so specialize, learn, expand your knowledge. If it's scars, you should know the consensus. You should acquire the knowledge. You should get the technologies, and then you will be able to really have good results.
Yeah, we'll keep this simple, but one of my takeaways from your talk yesterday and today was even plastic surgeons are telling their patients, oh, wait 6 months, wait a year. But now, you've led the research into this, but it's even pre-treatment treatments before the surgery is done, and then getting in with laser or other treatments within 4 weeks of that scar being created. So that's quite novel.
I think this is the future, by the way. So nowadays, this is not the standard of care. Nowadays, this is kind of, if you read the literature, you have to treat scar early. So if we talk about trauma or surgery, 2 to 4 weeks after, let's say, the event, you should initiate anti-scar treatment, either a vascular laser or non-ablative laser. We actually tried the Alma hybrid in high-grid mode, and we saw some advantage, so I think it's going to be published. But anyway, you should do something after. I think the future will be different. It sounds like a science fiction, right? But the patient will come 1 day, 24 hours to 72 hours before the surgery. We cannot anticipate, car accident. If we could have anticipated, maybe it would have, it would have changed our life. But surgery, usually it's elective, so we know the date. So the patient will come 24 to 72 hours before the surgery, and we will prime the skin. We will do something in order to normalize certain proteins, certain cytokines, certain factors. So we will create kind of an anti-scarring environment. And then eventually we'll have less scar. By the way, we published on it. So again, this is a publication from 2019, I think. It was a collaboration of my department and the Department of Plastic Surgery in my hospital in Tel Aviv Medical Center. And it was, we had the patients, we have I think 11 patients, and we followed out the patients for 12 months. It was the removal of giant lipoma in the back of the neck. And just 24 hours before the operation, the surgeon, they marked down the area of the operation. We divided into 2 halves. We randomized, and we just treated half. And we followed the patient for a year. You can see the publication. After a year, in the area that was treated 24 hours before the operation, there's nearly nothing. As compared to the side that wasn't treated, you can see a scar. So this is the future. Of course, this is not the standard of care. And I'm just talking about lasers. I can tell you, because I'm the president of SCARS, and I know where it goes. You're going to have different topicals and different medications that you're going to put prior to surgery in order to create this anti-scarring environment. So this is the future.
That's very exciting. Now, can you tell us a little bit about laser-assisted drug delivery for injectable treatments? Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on exosomes, polynucleotides, PLLA? Because, most people are injectors, including myself. Many people don't use devices in their clinic. But what are you seeing in the efficacy or better downtime, or what are the advantages of delivering, some of our aesthetic products with a laser?
So again, if you do laser-assisted drug delivery, this is probably the mainstay of drug delivery. For the people who are not familiar with this concept, we talk about laser. The laser creates channels within the skin, and then you apply topical medication. It will get into the channels and dissipate into the skin, into the area of treatment. Now, this is not the only drug delivery ways. So I published on TMFI technology. There's several ways to deliver, to permeate the skin. However, laser-assisted drug delivery, this is probably, we have the largest body of evidence. So we created a channel, then we apply certain substance or drug, and we have an effect. Let's start with science. Science, there are studies that if you compare I'm talking about injected drugs, so 5-FU, triamcinolone, as compared to injection, there are many advantages to the laser-assisted drug delivery. More homogeneous, more even distribution of drug, less uneven surface while talking about the injection of steroids, so it's better. Now, talking about what you asked me, polynucleotide you cannot apply topically. They will not get through the channels. It's true for CAHA, it's true for AJ. Regarding poly-L-lactic acid, there is a publication many years ago. I'm thinking, I think 2015 or 16, it's by Jill Weibel from Miami, and she showed that while performing laser-assisted drug delivery or laser-assisted Sculptra delivery, in this case, it gets into the channel and it will provoke more stimulation of collagen fibers and elastic fibers. So I use it a lot. So for example, for your question, whenever I have, let's say, acne scar patient, so if I have I don't want to do too much of a laser treatment. There is no downtime. So I use the inverted pyramid technique to inject some either biostimulatory agent, CAHA, PLLA, or other, or let's say bioremodeling agent like Profilo, to give you a tip for the injection, because it's still not in the market. I'm the site now who performed the studies. There is a very, very interesting HA-based product which is not cross-linked. However, it used BioLink, so like a puzzle. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I didn't want to remember it, but it's like I actually the second site. The first site was with Sattler in Germany. We're the second site. Very interesting and we see the biostimulation. So in the beginning, I was because I'm always very skeptical, but I was very surprised to see the result. So bioremodeling, less inflammatory. Okay, so I use it in the inverted pyramid technique, and then on top of it, I do the laser-assisted drug delivery, and I apply insulin, for example, or poly-lactic acid in order to stimulate more collagen. So I think maybe the message here, again, I do not believe in being just an injector. I think this is non-surgical aesthetic medicine. If you want to master every field, you can't do just one thing. So if you can't, it's like you can't do only lips injection. You can, but then you're very limited. If you want to have good results with a variety of patients for a variety of indications, you should have the tools.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tools, there are lots of device companies on the market. So what is it that attracted you to work with Alma? What devices do you use?
I think first I work with all companies.
Yes.
It's beautiful to see. It's a different, if you look at their team, is different atmosphere, different behavior. It's different.
Yes.
Alma is a relatively younger team with very open mind. And I think especially with their product and the way they see the market, not now, in the future. As compared to the past, 15 years ago, I remember that everything was very vague. We used devices, we didn't know what to promise. When I started, we just actually injected in the nasolabial. It was the beginning. That's what we did. The number of companies were very few. We couldn't do much. I think in the future, we are going to be very, I would say, accurate. It starts from the consultation. We are going to have tools to assist the physician in making the right decisions. For example, again, here I have to disclose, I'm a founder of this company, so we are the first AI-based simulator to simulate how the patient will look after injection. So it's very strong in the States and actually in the UK. So you just take a picture of yourself. We took lots of measurement. We now use it for lead generation. However, it can tell you, so the system can tell you what is the average number of syringes that should be used and how you're going to look. So we are not going to show nowadays. I'm sure that, for example, when you want to convince a patient to perform injection, you show her or him the before and after of other patients. Yeah. Come on. Do you really think, when you go to buy a shirt, I don't know, on the model, it looks amazing, but I want to see how the shirt looks on me. And it's not that I want to see. I want to send it to my partner so he said, you're hot. With this shirt, get it. So it's the same with fillers. So we're going to do the simulation. We are going to estimate. And again, I know that it's kind of problematic. If you can promise low performance, moderate performance, and high performance in every treatment. Okay, so you can have 3 levels of, I would say, results. And then it's going to be for every treatment, for pigmentation, for scars. And then you will be able to convince more patients. One of the problems of this field of aesthetic medicine, we convince the convinced. So there are so many people who would like to go through aesthetic procedures, but they're so scared.
Yeah, it's true. The barriers are looking strange, cost, don't understand it, the complications.
So try to think about this day that you are going to come to me and I'm going to talk to you about, let's say, resurfacing, and I'm going to show your face with the results and the downtime. That's how you are going to look after 1 day, 2 days. So it's going to change. So it's part of the consultation. This is one. Second, choosing the right parameters, and afterwards to have an objective measurement. How many times you sit in front of the before and after, and the patient is like, I don't see anything. I don't believe in don't see anything. It should be measured. Now, let's say for acne scars, we have a camera, 3D camera. We measure the volume deficit before and after, and the patient is coming after let's say after the first treatment, and the device or the measuring camera, it says you have an improvement of 12%. You can't argue with a measurement. So I think it's going to be the future, and I think this company goes towards this future, and we can see it with the way they think, how they developed their products. The Alma hybrid, this is a really, and I know the market, this is really to think about the future. It's a new era. In rejuvenation, we can customize our treatment. We can control the ratio of ablative and non-ablative. It's a game changer. It's a new tissue injury, and it will bring, and this is not the last, I would say, sentence of word. You will see that it's like the more I try it for different indications, medical and aesthetic, I find this system to be amazing.
That's a great point to end, and maybe we'll do a future podcast and delve into some of those topics a bit more. But thank you for your time. What's the one thing that you've learned from this Alma Academy?
Oh, I learned, I think in every academy, it's not just academy, I'm always telling the audience, it's enough to have one tip, one pearl that will change the life or will change the way you treat. So actually, there was a session on social media. I think I should invest more time. I think I'm very controversial. So on the one hand, I'm always like, oh God, I learned medicine. I did my academic to invest time in social media, but I see, there was a social media session now, and I see how much time, energy, efforts people invest in creative. I have to really think it in a different way. So being controversial on the one hand, I understand that it's needed. On the other hand, I said like, no, I'm a doctor, I'm a professor. I have to change my mind. So I took this, and I'll try to maybe follow my Instagram. Yeah. Maybe you will see it.
We'll be your newest followers, don't you worry. Well, thank you very much, Ofir. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
So that was Professor Artzi, guys. Hope you enjoyed a little insight into what he does and what he's all about. He has also agreed to come on the podcast. Hopefully next year it's going to be more of a time issue rather than a want issue. So hopefully we can work with Alma to get him back. Yeah. And maybe we'll even do an IA webinar. We haven't quite decided yet because, as David said, a lot of his work is visual. You want to see these results before and after, and obviously maybe some of the protocols that he's using with the various lasers and devices. So,
and he also kind of alluded to the use of AI in the future as well, and how that's going to help revolutionize the way we use these devices. So really interesting.
Yes. Then we had two Aussies representing Australia.
Yes.
We had Dr. John Sullivan. He's also a dermatologist down in Sutherlandshire.
Yep.
So again, I'd never met John. What a lovely guy.
Yeah.
So friendly, down to earth. He was giving a couple of talks on what he does. And let's let you listen to what he's all about.
Today we are joined by our own Dr. John Sullivan from Sydney, Australia. So for those of you, or for those that have not heard of John before, could you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in aesthetics, and just tell us the John Sullivan story?
Oh, okay. So I'm a dermatologist, and I suppose I've been doing dermatology for a long time, and as part of my training I also did clinical pharmacology and drug safety, and I really loved the medical side, but when you've been doing things for a long time, you're sort of always trying to find how to keep it interesting and how to do better. And I suppose a long time ago, I set up All About Acne, and that's where I sort of started to see, the role of lasers and lights for sort of treating a whole lot of things. And I thought the really exciting bit now is, a lot of what we can do is being enhanced with a laser-assisted drug delivery, and that's where it brings everything full cycle again. So, as you said, it's been a bit of a pathway, but it's really exciting to keep, what you do always evolving, always improving, and trying to do better. That, as you said, like medical dermatology's had lots of advances, but now I think it's really the time for cosmetic dermatology and laser to do the same.
So, John, what does your practice look like? Who are your typical patients, and are you still doing medical dermatology as well as cosmetic?
And yes, so we're located in the Sutherland Shire, and it's got the highest skin cancer and melanoma rates for Greater Sydney. And as a dermatologist, I love treating acne. I still sort of love seeing those patients, and the good part now is, repairing sun damage, getting rid of precancerous changes or treating early cancerous things. It really overlaps aesthetic medicine so well in what we can do. So I'm sort of 50-50, and we sort of grew the practice so I could get other dermatologists to help to take some of the pressure off of seeing the medical side of dermatology, and we're slowly branching more and more into the aesthetic and laser side and separating the two parts of the business.
Yeah, give our listeners an insight into what Australian skin is like. Well, I know that we're the skin cancer capital of the world, but what do you see in your patients?
And I think that's a good question, because it is really evolving. Like the Sutherland Shire was very Caucasian, very, very outdoor, really sort of sun damaged, lots of precancerous, crusty sort of changes. People will come saying, oh, I want to sort of improve the quality of your skin. You look and they've got, multiple superficial BCCs or precancerous lesions too. So I think it is really valuable where we are to be dermatologists as well to do that assessment. But it is evolving now. We are getting a lot more sort of olive skin people of Asian background and darker skin type. So where I sort of initially got devices made for Caucasian skin, we've really sort of had to evolve. And as you said, as you get better in the area, you also attract people from all over Sydney too. And I think now we really have to be good with all types of skin as well. But the backbone, how it sort of started was actually repairing Caucasian photo-damaged skin.
Yeah. So let's talk about your relationship with Alma, because there's a ton of devices in all markets, and Australia is no different. So talk to us about how you began working with Alma. I guess what were your reasons, and as a clinical dermatologist, what is it about, I guess, their brand and their products that sort of has drawn you to them?
And I suppose it was, again, that overlap with clinical pharmacology, that laser-assisted drug delivery, that photodynamic therapy is one of our favourite treatments for repairing the skin, getting rid of precancerous changes, early skin cancers. Then we had this advancement where you had the laser-assisted, where you do a low-density CO2 laser, just drill a little bit into the skin, and it really enhances delivery of actives into the skin. And Alma was the only company to actually have ultrasound enhanced delivery further. So if you were treating precancerous changes on your skin, you do the normal PDT versus laser assisted, it improves your outcomes about 2.7 times for clearing things. Then you add the ultrasound and you really accelerate that even further. So we bought our third CO2 device because of the ultrasound attachment. And at first I was thinking, why do I need another CO2 laser? But we've really fallen in love with the Alma hybrid, that it's really good for treating all types of scars. And I've always had a passion for acne, and it's really a workhorse for treating acne scars. That ability to blend the non-ablative and ablative, that before, to get really good results, people would have sort of 7 or 10 days cosmetic and medical downtime, whereas now you can shorten that to just a few days. So I thought, it was the laser-assisted drug delivery to do better. And I think the other good bit with that is it's all about reducing downtime, speeding healing, but also reducing complications, and having that ability to deliver actives afterwards. That simple things such as just ferulic acid, it speeds the healing by a day. It reduces the risk of dyspigmentation and PIH. It has the antioxidants to make up for the treatment that's completely sort of wiped out your oxidant defences. So being able to combine the two, it means better outcomes, less downtime, and really happier patients with less complications. So it's been a good enhancement.
Just focusing on away from the clinical side for a moment, when it comes to dealing with device companies, obviously, these pieces of equipment are extremely expensive. And I think that in my experiences with businesses, what can make or break the success of a device is how well it's implemented into your clinic, your practice, and then the support that you get from the company in terms of giving you all the right marketing tools and support. So what's your deal? Completely honestly, what has been your experience working with Alma as opposed to like other device companies, and what do you think the main difference is?
I have to say we've actually had a really good experience with Alma right from the beginning. That they're a really friendly team. They're really, really responsive. We've only ever had one temporary problem with a device about a month in, when it just needed sort of realignment, and that was fixed that same sort of day. The educational support's been excellent as well. But as you said, it is a big investment, and it is a premium device, so the Alma hybrid that we bought first. And for us, one of the big pluses, because we could use it for both our skin cancer side and the aesthetic side, that sort of had already that patient base. So from the beginning, for treating sort of skin cancer, and that actually sort of helped, pay or cover the bits there. And then anything extra sort of, was the sort of, doing the acne, scarring and cosmetic side was a bonus. So I suppose that's the good part, being a dermatologist and skin cancer doctor, you've got that option there. But I think now that we're getting more and more devices, we probably should be more strategic, that when you're getting one, planning to think, how have we got the market for, how we're going to market it. And I suppose that's where we've got it up to in our business now, where we're getting more to the aesthetic side. We're going to have to get better at marketing, and I think that's where Alma's actually been really good, because, I hadn't done any sort of social media before. If you Googled our practice, you get every other dermatology practice in Sydney except ours coming up, and I thought, it's time for us to sort of improve that marketing to get into the aesthetic space too, because as you said, if you're not visible, it makes it harder to get new patients. But again, the Sutherland Shire, we're really lucky that word of mouth seems at least as important, or really, really important there.
Yeah, we were talking just yesterday about your entry into the social media world. So what are you guys doing? What are you trialing? Do you find it enjoyable, painful? Because most of the listeners out there, they're running their own clinics, and this is the bane of their life. They don't know what to do. They're not sure what's resonating. And of course, in Australia, we've now got new regulations to manage as well.
And I think it's still a learning curve and pathway. At first thought we should be able to do it all in-house, keep it sort of really real. And then when you get busy, it gets put on the back burner there. So I think one of the really important things was to build up your team and have a few people in the team sort of interested in contributing, help sort of drive the agenda. But then also outsourcing part of it, so that, they remind us, what are you going to be posting the next sort of few weeks, sort of driving it, making suggestions there. And we found a really nice sort of outfit based in Cronulla. And they've actually been really good, had really good suggestions. But I think the most important thing is, every week we get reminded to plan into the future. And I think without that, it just falls apart, unfortunately, and it's put on the back burner. But I think it was nice, like at this meeting, I've had a few people saying they've been enjoying our social media and found it sort of quite useful and, some sort of good information as well as hopefully marketing as well.
Excellent. So in your talk, Beyond and Between the Lines, skin rejuvenation treatment. So what do you think the most promising advancements are when it comes to skin rejuvenation as we move into the future?
And I think it really sort of integrating and combining things that there's not one thing that sort of treats everything. And I sort of alluded to, it's that integrated skincare, the laser-assisted drug delivery with all your device treatments. But also we're now learning, it is that journey or that pathway. It's good to sort of pre-treat the skin to help it sort of heal, respond. But I think it's also sort of exciting that a lot of our injectables and even sort of cosmeceuticals, before, when I first started dermatology, they said, we're told a bland emollient sunscreen and a prescription retinoid, and that was they're all the same otherwise. And you think it's not true now. Like that evolution, just peptides, the ability to sort of have really targeted therapies that could delivered through the skin and actually have really good evidence now. I think it's, you've got to do the whole package that, you don't want to do a treatment that the benefits wear off. You want to protect the skin, have things that enhance the defences from our environment, but also prime the skin for your next treatment as well. And as you said, with injectables, they're evolving too. They're not just sort of fillers, they're not just hydrators. And I suppose it's got complex, there's lots of competition, there's lots of disinformation, but there's also a good amount of science. I think it's really exciting that you are actually fixing skin disease, making the skin healthier and making it rejuvenated. But again, they say we can't in our new code equate rejuvenation type products with skin health, but I think, we are treating skin disease and a lot that we do, that when you've got sun damage in the skin, the cells don't function properly, they don't retain the moisture, they don't function, you get more irritation. So I think we are actually repairing the skin and making a big difference in health as well.
So as an injector, I'm really interested in laser-assisted topical treatments that can get into the skin through the pores that you've made with the laser. So what have you played with, and what would your initial thoughts be on what's efficacious?
Taking one step back as an injecting doctor, the laser-assisted drug delivery actually works from both ways. So it works from what you put on the skin to go through those channels. You've got this coagulation zone that sucks up water-soluble drugs or actives, and then you've got this reservoir that then distributes it over the next few days. So it's not just immediately, you get a prolonged effect afterwards. But again, if you were to inject underneath the skin, you've got this coagulation zone that again sort of sucks up, targets things there. So if you're going to do polynucleotides and you add a bit of botulinum toxin, you can really target to the skin layer, use a lot less of the botulinum toxin, so you're not getting that same risk of it diffusing elsewhere and being wasted. So that gets the ability to sort of target there. But as I've mentioned, sort of the simple things such as the ferulic acid, the vitamin C gets sucked in, you get 17 times the absorption that you get otherwise with just a really mild laser. But, one of the other things I was talking about was even just glycerine, that you've got glycerine now in some of those injectables, such as one of the boosters has glycerine, and a lot of other products that we put on the skin also glycerine, and that sucks in the moisture. It's anti-inflammatory, helps hydrate with the function of the skin. It helps stabilise the collagen, but it also has the same bioreflection or reflection as collagen, so you get that glow immediately and then the new collagen production afterwards. So even really simple things like glycerine can have a big effect there. And then again, I mentioned the PDT, but yeah, Sculptra or the PLLA. I think the good part with the TED on the Alma hybrid, you can actually help it get through those channels because it's a big molecule and you really want to deliver a good amount. But yeah, my talk on acne, we use that routinely for our acne scarring patients to improve their scar healing, but also in the rejuvenation to improve that collagen response as well.
So just to clarify, say in the example of Sculptra or PLLA, so obviously traditionally it was injected under the skin. So is this a replacement for traditional Sculptra treatment, or is this like an adjunct? So you're treating the skin from above and below, or is this, from a layperson's perspective?
I think, no, it's exactly what I was alluding to there. I think you should take advantage from treating from above and below, but you can just use a small amount from above just to improve that collagen response. But if you've got someone with sort of atrophic scars and more severe defects there, while I'm preparing for the laser, we do the subcision, putting in the tumour as an anaesthesia to make it a comfortable procedure, and you'll follow that by the injection of Sculptra underneath, and you'll save just sort of 15% of the product to put on top and then to ultrasound in. So you're getting... And I think, clinically, you're actually getting a much better response by doing the two. And I think that coagulation zone, you've already stimulated that repair. You've got that scaffold. You've got the fibroblasts that have woken up. And I think, you really get quite amazing sort of outcomes compared to what I would have done just before with just the laser and or just the Sculptra before.
Very exciting stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. Book David in. Well, thank you, John. We really appreciate these insights. It's nice to get to know you on this trip. And David's going to book in and see you soon.
Thank you.
See you later.
It's been a pleasure.
Okay, guys, hope you enjoyed that little chat with John. As Jake said, super friendly guy, very down to earth, was very candid. So that was a fantastic chat. And it's good to sort of reconnect with Aussies when you're overseas. He sort of, as I said, it was a very international audience. So spotting the Aussies and having a chat with them was sort of always nice.
Actually, the Aussie contingent, I think, was one of the biggest teams. There was maybe 30 or 40, doctors, nurses, dermal therapists. It was quite well represented, which is unusual. Normally there's like 3 of us. So it was nice. And then the final KOL we spoke to was Dr. Josh Wall from Contour Clinics. As you may know, Contour Clinics, there's 8 clinics around the country now. 7 are in Sydney and 1's in Brisbane. And Josh was there as a KOL to talk about business. So right up your alley.
Yes.
We had a good chat off camera as well as on camera, but let's let you hear what Josh had to say about what he feels about the market and business currently.
We're with Dr. Josh Wall from Contour Clinics. How are you, mate?
Very well, thanks.
Excellent. Now, Josh, you're here mainly to speak about business and strategy and how to position your clinic. So first of all, give the guys, I guess, a rundown on who you are, your background and Contour Clinics.
Yeah, so my name's Josh, Josh Wall. I'm the founder of Contour Clinics. We're a chain of doctor-led clinics throughout Sydney and Brisbane. We have 8 of them across Sydney and Brisbane now. We started about 5 years ago now with a tiny clinic in 5 Dock, and I remember the month we started, we saw 3 patients, and now we've scaled up to 6,000 patients a month now. So with that comes a lot of different challenges in terms of managing patients and managing staff and doctors and nurses and really keeping things flowing nicely, but also very safe and considered.
Right. So when you started the business, what was the thought process behind where you were going to position yourself in the industry? What is it that you were going to do differently? And, what are some of the strategies that have worked for you over that time, do you think, that sort of reflect the success that you've had?
Yeah. So, look, how we positioned ourselves was a doctor-led clinic. So we saw ourselves as the business class of cosmetics. So you had some of the chain clinics that were largely run by nurses, and then you've got the very top tier plastic surgeons, dermatologists. They're seeing a patient every 6 minutes. They're seeing 80 patients a day because they're so high level. We were like, we're going to provide an amazing service in a luxurious environment with doctors and nurses, because we feel nurses still provide an excellent level of care, so that it keeps it slightly affordable, but at a reasonable premium as well. So you're getting really good value for money. So I guess the business class is kind of how I like to say we've positioned ourselves.
Now, you've grown to 8 clinics.
Yes.
Very well done. What's the plan? Do you want to be a super chain? Are you going to be happy at 10, 8? Where do you see yourself going?
It's a really hard question, that one. So I think at the scale we're at the moment, I just think improving our service delivery better. We're still not at complete capacity at all the clinics. And with more and more clinics comes more complexity, comes more staffing. It becomes a lot more difficult. So I would like to go Australia-wide. I wouldn't want to go any further than that. But I still understand the challenges of doing that. I do like the fact that they're all close to me at the moment and that I can keep a good control over them. And I do like the kind of bespoke nature of what we still offer. So in the clinics, I try and keep them like a little bespoke boutique in and of itself. So they've got specific teams that are there. It feels like a kind of family clinic, but then you're in a bigger model, I guess. So the answer to that, I'm not sure. And 7 years ago, I was heading down a surgical training pathway. I had no intention of coming down here, and I just think, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing and growing and scaling. And at the moment, we're doing a lot of acquisitions, bringing clinics into our fold. So if those keep coming up for us, then we'll pursue those opportunities. But I don't want to sacrifice the quality of our service for quantity at the moment. So I know it's a complicated answer. But
what was your strategy for acquisition rather than building fresh new clinics? Did you identify ones that were struggling, or did they reach out to you? Like, where did that come from?
They reached out to me, and I think it's one of those economies of scale things where they may have a clinic that's doing reasonably well, but they still have the same costs associated that I do. So they still pay their 10 grand a month for their accountancy fees. They still pay their 5 grand a month for IT fees. Whereas when they come into my group, I just get all those fees and I take them in, and they don't have to pay them anymore. I don't have to pay anymore. They don't pay. So then immediately there's like 100, 200 grand of profit that's there under our management. And then the guys get to make probably more money and then go home at 5 and not think about the business anymore, because I've got that side of things covered. So I had no intention of getting more clinics this year because I wanted to stabilise the offering, but I had like 4 just fall into my lap that I couldn't really say no to. It was win for me, win for them. So I'd imagine I'm probably getting offered a clinic once a fortnight to once a month now, because the cost of living pressures are going up. People are finding it tough. Cost of digital marketing is increasing rapidly. What I paid 2 years ago is not what I'm paying today. So it's a challenging environment out there. So I think getting people together as a team is really what's going to be helpful moving forward.
Sure. So you mentioned marketing. That's something that I think you did really, really well from the beginning. It's a really saturated space. Now we've got all the compliance and rules and regulations here in Australia with, I guess, especially talking about scheduled meds.
Yes.
So what was the marketing strategy from the beginning, and how did you sort of acquire those patients quickly? Because you weren't in sort of high foot traffic retail locations. I think your first clinic might have been in Newtown or something, which sort of, it's not typically where you'd see one of these clinics. It wasn't like a street front location. So what you did online was critically important. So can you just walk us through your strategy for that?
Look, I see myself as an online business. So I could be, well, like my first business, I was at the back of a little car park area that it's really hard to find. There's 0 foot traffic. I think I've had 1 customer walk past ever. And what I did for marketing is I went on and I just answered questions that people wanted to know. So for instance, I'd go onto a website like Answer the Public. It shows the top 100 most asked questions on Google for a certain treatment, and then I just answer them all. So all my content would be around that. So all my marketing was about providing value to a patient that's interested in that treatment. So in marketing, we talk about it in terms of bottom of the funnel. So these people are hot leads, they're ready to buy now, they're in their research phase of their buyer's journey. And I wanted to capture people at that phase that were ready to buy. So I guess that's really what we've done. The other thing I've done is I like to show rather than tell. So I can say I'm the best doctor in the world for this kind of stuff, whereas I show them the whole journey. So all of our content is from the time you walk in the door to the time you fill in your forms, to the time you see the doctor, what the treatment looks like, what the aftercare looks like, all of that stuff. You've had the consultation online before you've even come in. So I think that's been our point of difference. And that's something that we've just done a focus group research study through this data analysis company that suggested that people don't have enough information to make a choice. So that was been the one big thing that came out in the research. The other thing that came out was safety and hygiene. And so interestingly, people didn't really care about the cost of things in that research at all. So they're the things that we've been really targeting. So in all our content, you'll see that we've got lots of hygiene, like soaps and stuff. And so people know that that's a safe environment. So it's very luxurious in the waiting room, but very clinical in there. So we're trying to use evidence in everything we do.
Right.
I guess.
And what was the strategy around where you were going to be messaging people? So was it Google My Business, Instagram, Facebook? Because those ads can get really expensive, especially depending on what keywords you're competing for. So understand what you were trying to say, but how did you actually execute that so well?
Yeah, so what we did is we had a certain percentages for each different part of a funnel, I guess. So you've got the top of funnel, which is the brand awareness. So we'd have 20% of our budget that would be on the brand awareness piece. So that may be in programmatic ads. So the ads that if you've gone to a cosmetic website, then my banner might come up on another website that you go and visit. which would just be, because they say that when you're choosing a product, you've got to see it. I think years ago it was like 7 times you had to see the product. Now I think it's 15 or 20 times you have to see my brand before you interact with it. So trying to get that brand awareness. And then we break up different budgets based on different return on investments or different treatment offerings. So we do the Meta ads, we do a lot of Google ads as well. They're very good if done properly. You can do them very poorly and spend a lot of money and not get a return on them. So the other thing we do is we like to nurture our patients. So we have lots of funnels. So we'll have email funnels for every single thing. So if you engage in one of my ads and you fill in the form, you're going to then go into a funnel that gives you 5 emails over the next 3 months that gives you more and more specific information about that treatment. So the kind of summary to your question is that any channel that you can possibly imagine, I'm on. So, but I have different percentages of my budget and percentage of my time that are attributed to each of those. So email marketing, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're even getting on Reddit forums. Yep. They're very great. The SEO is one of my favorite things. And that is something if you can invest a ton of time in and you'll get a payoff that lasts for a long time. And those things are such a high barrier to entry because it requires so much of your time that if your competitors aren't willing to put that time in and write the content properly, it's very hard to compete. I mean, I've got 250,000 words on my website, all written by a doctor. So, I mean, that takes years to do, which the new regulations have made very difficult because now I have to go and change a lot of it. But, I guess that's the answer to that question.
Something that a lot of clinics struggle with is scaling quality. I mean, David's managed, 6 clinics with 70, 80 staff at any given time, and you're getting to that stage with a lot of staff. So yes. With injectors, it's hard to find one good injector, let alone 10, 20. Yeah. So how have you guys sort of implemented training or protocols to get everyone on an even keel and indeed grow?
It's a really hard thing to do. So we have a capabilities checklist for everybody, and we like to go and check everyone off on every capability. And I get people to rate themselves on, so everything you could possibly do as a cosmetic doctor, we have, and then people are rated on that, and then we see if my rating matches their rating, and then we organise training around that. Similarly with the nurses, we do the same thing. And then we hold a ridiculous amount of training in our clinics. So last year I had 700 hours of live teaching. So the pharmaceutical companies really help with that. So we do very large orders. So as a part of that, they'll give us a lot of training. And then we hold a lot of internal teachings as well. So, and then we've got our finger very on the pulse when it comes to customer reviews. So we do a lot of reach out to customers. We've got an outbound call center with 6 full-time staff that do a lot of calling patients afterwards to see how things have gone. If we notice that one staff member might not be performing very well in terms of the internal reviews they're getting, then we'll have our call center call those patients, say, hey, what's going on? And then I might get involved and give you very specific feedback about what's been going on.
Skin.
Yes.
It's become a focal point. And I guess it's one of the reasons why we're all here is to talk about Alma, the devices, the technology. Yes. Yeah. I've been covering really interesting topics such as laser-assisted delivery of injectable products.
Yes.
So how have you implemented skin so successfully into your clinic? Because I guess most of the people that sort of listen to our podcast, predominantly injectors, whether they be here or abroad, and a lot of them struggle with implementing skin successfully into their clinics. Questions like, I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse, am I better off spending my time injecting or doing skin? What treatments do I do? How far do I sort of spread myself? Or if they have a team, how do they sort of implement this technology and these treatments successfully and potentially even use skin as, a gateway drug in some respects to be able to advertise more and then transition people across to other revenue streams or other services within the practice. So just some advice and thoughts on that would be great.
Yeah, look, I think it's to be able to call yourself a proper cosmetic practice, you need energy-based devices. You need to be able to treat the skin. And when we have our patients, we like to take them on a journey. And that journey will include skin creams. It'll include things like redness and pigmentation, so colour of the skin, resurfacing of the skin. And then you think of things like volume and toxins. So if we take patients through that complete journey, our goal as a clinic is to keep people 7 to 10 years younger for the rest of their lives. We want to keep you we're going to be basically your personal trainers for your aesthetics, essentially. And lasers are just an essential part of that. So you need to treat the skin. And you need to have all the options available because you don't want to be sending patients elsewhere for basic things. Now, for the more complicated medical dermatology things, in our clinics, we like to stay very much in our scope. So we refer all those things on. But for the simple redness, very mild rosacea, for the pigmentation, for the resurfacing, I think it's a necessity, and your patients will really thank you for it because the results you can get from a simple laser skin resurfacing, it has 1 to 3 days downtime, or wild, like they're so impressive. And when you look at someone and you go, you look really healthy, often it's because your skin looks great. That's the main thing. So your light reflects better off your skin, and some of the skin resurfacing things we do, particularly the Alma hybrid, is something we're getting a lot of really good feedback for. And it's also keeping these patients in your clinic, which is great because they all need a treatment course. So 3 to 5 sessions. And then on their 3rd session, they might be like, oh, while I'm here, I might do my tox or, whatever else. So we find it makes patients very sticky, right? So they want to keep coming back.
Where do you stand on cosmetic physicians like you and me, or referring to, even internally, to a dermal therapist who might do the energy-based devices? I guess my question is your cost per time or your earnings per time as an injector. What do you think is the best balance?
I think that I'll tell you how we do it in our clinics. So we have the more intensive, aggressive treatments. They're done by doctors. So some of the more intensive CO2 lasers, we have some doctors who have a special interest in lasers, and they do those treatments. And for those, we charge more. So the cost per unit of time is very attractive to the doctor doing that treatment. Our dermal therapists, we're very much having them in a way that's controlled. So there's a lot of guardrails around what they can do because the first thing you want to keep patients safe. You don't want to cause any problems at all. And we find it's more of a complementary approach. So we work as a team rather than as individuals. And even the way I reward our staff, so we have a thing called lifetime value, which is measured out over 12 months. And it rewards people that collaborate with other practitioners in the group. So if you refer to a lot of dermal therapists, you'll get credit for the money that they've spent with them, right? And it's amazing how it works out because the people that were still good injectors, they still stay high in the lifetime value, but you'll see the cross referrals were just really getting increased. And then we have another thing called Net Promoter Score, where patients will say how likely they are to recommend a friend to come to the clinic. And since we've done that, that's gone up as well, because patients often want to be not sold to, but they want to have all the options. So they want to have those options and they want to be able to decide. And I think it's just an essential part of the journey.
It's a paradigm shift, I think, for a lot of professionals that come into this space to be confronted with a different area of medicine, which is not life critical.
Yes.
And I think that this sort of conversation around selling, I don't want to sell to people, I don't want to pressure people.
Yes.
And changing that from sell to educate.
Yeah.
And being passionate about the industry.
Yeah.
And getting back to sort of even first principles thinking around, well, why are you in this industry? Are you here because you think you're going to make money quickly? Are you here because you're really passionate about this space and what you can do for your patients? So I think that from my perspective, I always had to spend a lot of time getting people to sort of change their perspective, because it should never be feeling like you're pressure selling. It's because the patients have come to you because you're the expert.
Absolutely.
And they're looking to you to lead them, as you said, and educate them, give them all the options. It's not your job to decide whether they can afford it or whether they can't.
Yes.
Is that a conversation that you have to have with people within your team around changing that mindset to educate?
I say we practice cosmetic medicine. So we don't do transactional services. So we don't come in and you get your Botox and then you go away, right? So we will address your presenting complaint and then say, while you're here, would you like to learn more? And 95% of people want to know, and I think I said it earlier, the worst thing you can do for a patient is not let them spend. So they come in very excited about changing their whole look and having their skin amazing, everything. And then if you don't mention it, but they know they've read that on your service list, you'd be amazed at what patients have read before they've come in. And then they're like, God, I went to see Jake and he didn't even mention the skin, right? And I've seen his Instagram story and he talked about skin and I thought that he'd see my skin. And, you know, so you got to make sure that you're practicing cosmetic medicine and giving patients a great consultation and a great service.
Yeah. You're on a bit of a transformation yourself. I've seen your TikToks and your Instagram.
Yeah.
So what's that all about and what are you doing and what's the goal?
Look, the main reason I've done that is that I don't know if you guys have ever seen Brian Johnson, the
The guy that's using the adrenochromes from his son to stay young forever.
That's right. So I've not done that with my son yet.
Yeah.
But basically, I've seen how successful he was on the whole longevity thing, and I thought no one's done this for aesthetics, and because I am a doctor in the space, I wanted to show people. I want to remove taboos around this. So I want to show them exactly what it looks like to get every one of our treatments, warts and all. So if I have redness or inflammation or swelling, you'll see that whole journey in a very raw way. And I want to show people at the end that I just look like a younger, fresher version of myself, and I've had all these treatments done. And it's something that's been really, really popular. I mean, I didn't really do much social media before this. I had my business side of things, but my personal one, I was getting 1,000 views a month. Now I think I'm up to like 700,000 views a month now. And I started the journey like 2 months ago.
Wow.
So it's something that people are really interested in. They want to see those personal changes. They want to see those personal stories. And marketing in general now is all about storytelling. You know, people want to see authentic storytelling. And I noticed with influence as well, you don't often see the before. You see the awesome after, and you see all the stuff, especially fitness influencers. You see this jack dude and you know whatever he's doing. And I'm like, no, I'm coming in bad, right? So I started for almost a year, I'd done nothing. And I got really overweight and I'd done all this stuff. I stopped taking finasteride and whatever for my hair, and I regret that though. It seems to be really good. And I really it's a really good education piece for my patients.
Yeah, awesome. So back to Alma and the Academy.
Yeah.
And there's been some fantastic talks, and we've spoken to some amazing people with interesting perspectives and ideas on what's coming in the future.
Yes.
What are the most valuable lessons that you've learned or pieces of information that you've picked up that you potentially are going to take back and implement with your clinics?
Look, I think every time you come to one of these events, you get inspired. There's some really impressive doctors out there doing impressive things, and you think, oh, I'm going to bring that back to my patients, or I'm going to implement that specific strategy. And I think I've been amazed as well at the versatility of devices to treat all kinds of different conditions. And the one thing that I was really like, because in our clinics, we're not a medical dermatology clinic, we're a purely aesthetic clinic, and a lot of the treatments are delegated to staff that I don't want to do crazy settings on. Some of the doctors here have been doing really cool, like low settings with low downtimes and really safe, effective treatments that I found really, really appealing to bring back to Contour.
Fantastic. Well, Josh, thank you for your time. We appreciate the insights and good luck with it all.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, that concludes all of the discussions that we had in our time over with Alma in Thailand. Hope you enjoyed it. It was a first for us. We certainly enjoyed it and would welcome the opportunity to do that kind of thing again. I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it, to be honest with you. And surprisingly, Jake, we didn't kill each other.
Well, most of our arguments come through text.
Yes.
So when we get on the phone or see each other in person, we love each other again. So no, it was good. It was good fun. I really enjoyed it. I mean, my key takeaways, and you probably heard from the various speakers that we've put in this podcast, it was combination treatments. That was by far and away the biggest thing. So if you currently don't offer any energy-based devices, lasers, radio frequency or something else in your clinic, that could be or should be something that you at least look at. I'm not saying go and buy something tomorrow, but Alma have a great portfolio of stuff, and even I was sort of sat there thinking, maybe I should actually start learning this, even though I might not offer in my clinic, but just to understand it better and to refer better, and obviously develop those protocols where we might do injectables on the same sitting.
Yeah. Well, it's a competitive landscape, and that kind of ties nicely into the business component of the discussions that we had. You need to know about what's going on across the entire industry. It's not enough now to just know about injectables or just to know about skin. Even if you don't practice them yourself, having a multidisciplinary team or having people in your sort of local community you refer to and understanding what can be achieved. Because as this industry becomes more and more competitive, you need to be at the cutting edge of what's available and making sure that you're giving the best possible outcome and treatment solutions to your patients.
Yeah, 100%. This is kind of a strange takeaway, but I think an important one. When you go on a conference, you can, you're there with 340 people from around the world, and yet most people just sit there and listen to the rock stars on stage.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaways for me was actually speaking to everyone else.
Yeah.
There were some really impressive people. I'm not going to butcher their names, but, just talking to people about their own practice, what they do, how they structure things, pricing, how they market. You learn these little nuggets of information.
Yeah, and just networking and meeting people, because if you've got a struggle or an issue or a challenge, chances are you're going to meet someone there that's probably been through it or can empathize with your situation. So I think it's nice to get out of your bubble and socialize, and not just socialize for socializing's sake. It's just to grow your network and learn from other people from around the world. And the other big takeaway for me was that if you are going to invest in a device, whether it be with Alma or any other of the great companies that are out there, it's more than just about the price and what the technology can actually do. It's about what is that company going to do for you. What's the long-term relationship you want to have, things like consumables, finance, ongoing support. If your device or technology becomes superseded, what does that look like in the future in terms of staying up to date with what's the latest? So I think it's just about doing your due diligence, asking to speak to other customers or finding other people that use the device and doing your own research, because these are big investments. They need to be taken seriously. You need to plan for them. It's not just a matter of getting a device and plonking it in your clinic and hoping that it's going to be successful. You need to plan for that success to happen.
100%. So from David and I, thank you again to Alma for taking us along, and a couple of shout outs.
Yes.
So to Tal, who is the Australian managing director.
Yeah, Tal Usman.
Tal, we really appreciate you obviously taking us, but also just really nice to hang with you, just to get to know you better.
Yep.
And hopefully we see you soon. We had Haggai, who was sort of organising everything behind the scenes in terms of our travel and making sure we were comfortable.
Yes.
And obviously organising all of our little meetups with various KOLs. So thank you.
And he was great at holding. He was a great cameraman as well, because he actually was the person that him and Tal were the people that were filming a lot of the content that you might see in some of the mashup videos that we put up on our socials a bit later. So thank you for doing that as well.
Yeah. Anyone else that we've forgotten?
Well, thanks to you. Thanks for being a great travel partner. Thanks for taking those embarrassing photos of me on the plane while I was trying to sleep in an upright position. But it was good. It was a great trip. We didn't kill each other. I think it was good for our relationship. It was good to sort of do something a bit different. And yeah, as I said, we would be open to doing this again in the future. It's sometimes a bit isolating being all the way down here in Australia. So we'd love to get overseas and meet some different people from different companies and do things a little bit differently.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next podcast. For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr Jake Sloane and David_Inside Aesthetics.
Join our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.